billion. That's how much they saved in taxes. Jobs? No, they didn't. In fact, wages have not kept up with inflation. So if you take inflation into account, our wages have not gone up at all. In fact, they've gone down slightly. What did they do with the money? Let's take a look at corporate stock buybacks. So stock repurchases hit $190 billion in the first quarter of 2018 for the S&P 500. These are the best companies, the biggest companies in the country, right? The last time that record was set was just before the Great Recession, when companies bought up almost $172 billion in their own stocks or stock buybacks. That's what they're doing with their money. They're artificially inflating the cost or the value of those shares, and then they immediately cash out. So for all of the people who are watching this, who come at me with a ridiculous argument about how this benefits everyone's retirement accounts and their 401ks, no. These corporate executives cash out as soon as they can because they want to reap the benefits. So they're screwing with your future with these massive tax cuts that they've received.
Stock buybacks were $190 billion, Anna said, but that was in one quarter. So you have to times that by 4 to give you a sense of how much. It's going to be around $800 billion for the year. Did you guys get $800 billion? You remember when you opened up your paycheck and you were like, whoa, look at this. Money, a couple of $1 billion. Didn't expect that. No, Paul Ryan bragged about how you might have gotten $1.50 in your paycheck. $1.50 versus $800 billion. Okay, now I want you to understand it's not just one guy, Stivers over there. Let me go to graphics 1 and 2 here. Senator Pat Toomey, Republican of Pennsylvania. We've got entitlement spending that is not sustainable. But $1.9 trillion for the rich was sustainable, apparently, according to Senator Toomey. These big spending programs that are growing faster than the economy, you can't tax your way out of that problem. You've got to make some curbs.
Please.
What do you mean you can't? Wait. You tax cutted our way into the problem. So you're like, hey man, I can't add taxes on top to get out of the problem. But you created the problem. You created a $2 trillion problem. Okay, so anyone in the media, including John Harwood there, that doesn't point that out, helps the Republicans perpetuate this lie. Every single time they must ask them, what about the $1.9 trillion hole that you guys put in national debt through these tax cuts, whether you think they're for the rich or not? And by the way, they're for the rich. And we gave you the overall number. You know how much the average person in the top 1% got in tax cuts? $61,000 a year, every year. Okay. Did you get $61,000 a year from these tax cuts? No, you didn't, because you're not among the rich. And one more, Senator John Thune of South Dakota, of course, Republican. If we're going to do something about spending and debt, we have to get faster growth in the economy, which I hope tax reform will achieve. Has it? No. All we did was the stock buybacks, inflated the stock market artificially. Did it go to your wages? Not at all. They have declined. Liars. Okay. But we have also got to take on making our entitlement programs more sustainable. I think there's support generally here for entitlement reform. So, of course, all the Republicans love so-called entitlement reform, where they reform the money out of your pocket and into their donors' pockets. And unfortunately, a lot of the Democrats also agree, and that is why the system is rigged. And by the way, if you think that it's going to help your pensions and your 401ks, as Anna was pointing out, tick, 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 until that bubble bursts. I'm telling you right now, the stock market is going to crash.
It is going to crash. And another thing I wanted to just quickly mention about these stock buybacks, they were illegal. They were banned up until the Reagan administration. So the Reagan administration decides, we'll allow these corporate buybacks to occur. And so this has been an ongoing issue. This isn't a partisan issue. This isn't me pointing to Republicans and saying it's the Republicans' fault, although they've definitely had a huge role in making this happen. I mean, this happened under the Obama administration as well,
and
right?
Clinton administration.
Absolutely. So from 2004 to 2014, there was a study done by the Roosevelt Institute, and they found out, keep in mind, this is while restaurant workers are on the streets demanding a living wage, and the restaurant industry is saying, no, we can't afford it. We just can't afford it. At that time, okay, according to this study by the Roosevelt Institute, the restaurant industry spent 140% of its profits on buybacks. This is just between 2015 to 2017. And why do I say 140%? Because it also takes into account that some of these companies will literally take out debt to buy shares of their own stock, to artificially inflate those shares.
Okay, and Bill Clinton is the one who deregulated the banks in the first place. He did it with Phil Gramm, who was a Republican. Yet another bipartisan compromise that the mainstream media applauded, while it absolutely devastated our economy. It caused the crash in 2008, and it will cause the crash today. So, one more time, let me be absolutely clear. This stock market will crash. You cannot keep doing stock buybacks and artificially inflate the price of your companies when there is actually no reason why those companies have actually done better in the real world. They don't have more profit. They don't have more revenue. It is an artificial inflation. That is called a bubble. Bubbles always burst. This market will crash. It's an absolute guarantee. But nonetheless, we go on as if everything is fine. And once they do, once the market crashes, they'll come back and say, oh my, but I gotta get paid my bonus. What kind of a person will let me get my bonus? I have to get more multi-million-dollar payouts while you lose all of your 401k.
Well, that's one terrible thing that's coming up, but we have more news on what's going to happen to the CFPB, so let's get to that. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has been controlled by Mick Mulvaney as of late, and Mulvaney has done anything and everything possible to essentially tear the CFPB apart. This is the one bureau that's supposed to look out for you as the consumer. He has dismantled it. Now, in the future, this organization is going to need a new leader because Mulvaney was just supposed to be an interim head of the CFPB. So news recent news indicates that the Senate Banking Committee is likely to vote in favor of a woman named Kathy Kraninger to be the new head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Does she have any experience as the head of any government agency? No. Does she have any experience in the financial sector in any way? No. What experience does she have? Well, she has worked as an aide to Republican politicians.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep.
Republican politicians, they just can't wait to protect consumers.
Yeah.
A favor for the banks, they would never do that. They're always looking out for you guys, saying, how can we regulate the banks to make sure there's enough cops on Wall Street to protect the average American? So she's probably studied in the art of how to screw over consumers to help Wall Street, because that's all the Republicans ever do in Congress.
So, very little is known about her because she doesn't really have much experience. But what we do know is who she considers her mentor.
Oh,
and her mentor is Mick Mulvaney. She says that she's hoping to do as great of a job as Mulvaney has done with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And literally, the only thing that he's done is dismantle it. So I'll give you specific examples. Among his top donors are payday lenders. And so during the Obama administration, there was some regulation to rein in the behavior of these payday lenders who prey on people in incredibly vulnerable situations. And these payday lenders would also tack on extremely high interest rates, sometimes as high as 300%. There were cases where there were interest rates tacked on at 750%. Okay, so they would prey on people in terrible situations who were vulnerable, and then they would be caught in this inescapable cycle of debt. And so there was a lawsuit filed by the federal government against some of these payday lenders. Well, Mick Mulvaney all of a sudden gets into the CFPB, he's in charge, and you know what he did? Drop the lawsuits. So these payday lenders can continue doing what they were doing. They can now get away with it because there's no regulatory body that's enforcing, the regulations that were put in place in the first place. And now we're going to have Kathy Kraninger come in, if she gets approved by the Senate, and she's just going to continue doing with what Mick Mulvaney has done, during his time at the CFPB.
Yeah. So, I know there's some good conservatives in the country. I was recently at a Wolfpack event and met John Putner there. He helped take down Eric Cantor in a Republican primary. Dave Brandt ran against him. And they ran a campaign against the big bankers who are ripping off American people. That's a great campaign. I appreciate that. They were absolutely right about that. Now, are there Republican politicians in office now who crusade against the bankers in a similar way to protect the average American?
No.
The answer is absolutely not. No. There are good conservatives and Republicans across the country at the state level, the local level, voters, sure, okay? But in terms of national Republican politicians, almost to a man, maybe Walter Jones, deeply, deeply conservative, don't agree with him on anything, but he's actually honest. But 99.9% of them, they're corrupt. They work for their donors. They are the swamp, and they rip you off on a regular basis to help these donors, the payday lenders. I mean, who is in charge of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, protecting consumers, and says, yeah, I bet the payday lenders charging them 750% interest have their best interest in mind. Well, they do have best interest in mind, that's true, but not yours. So Mick Mulvaney's corruption is brazen. To be fair to the payday lenders, they bribed the right guy. They found a guy that they thought, this guy will do anything we tell him. And in Republican circles at the national level, if you raise your hand and say, I will do anything a corporate donor tells me, anything, you will get promoted and promoted and promoted. So Mulvaney got promoted twice within the Trump administration. And so now, Kraninger comes in and goes, I'll also be corrupt. I'll be just as corrupt as Mulvaney. Please, please give me an awesome job. Give me a lot of power. And later, by the way, I'll work for those same financial companies, and they'll pay me a ton of money for letting me rob you of your hard-earned dollars. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has returned billions of dollars to the American people because it was fraud. The bankers have armies of lawyers. They're not paying billions of dollars if they didn't do it. They did do it. The Protection Bureau protected you. Return that money to the average American. Now Kraninger says, no. I'm not going to represent you. Just like Mulvaney, I will represent the giant bankers and the payday lenders, and we will rob you blind. And every Republican will vote for her. I guarantee it. I'm telling you ahead of time.
Absolutely.
I guarantee it. They will all vote for her, and they'll be proud of it. So the next time you vote for a Republican, why don't you just give them your wallet while you're at it?
So you just touched on something that I want to elaborate on, because there is a little bit of hope when it comes to this story, believe it or not. So right now, the Senate Banking Committee is likely to approve her nomination, but they're not the ultimate deciders. The ultimate deciders includes the entire Senate. So the Senate will have to vote on confirming her. They are unlikely to get to that vote until after the midterm election. So with that said, it is incredibly important to elect progressives. I'm not saying elect Democrats, I'm saying elect progressives. People that you know will vote against this nominee.
See, perfect example. I feel like sometimes we're the only people who actually are nonpartisan. And it's ironic because they say, oh, you guys are biased, you have a perspective. Now, we have a perspective that is, yes, progressive, but also looking out for the average person. So who also attacks Democrats and Republicans? Almost no one else, right? So in this case, Tom Carper, senator from Delaware, what did he do? He voted to deregulate the banks. He's a Democrat. Why did he do that? Because he takes a giant amount of money from the banks. So is Tom Carper corrupt? Goddamn right he's corrupt. So go vote in a primary for Kerry Harris, who's a Justice Democrat, who refuses to take corporate PAC money. Why do I keep emphasizing that? Because if they take the corporate money, they work for the corporations. They don't work for you. When they don't take it, at least you know that they have a shot at representing you. So go vote for Kerry Harris in Delaware. Throw that corrupt Tom Carper out of office. Otherwise, you'll vote for the bankers for the rest of your life. Go vote in primaries. And by the way, if you're a Republican, go vote in your primaries. I don't know if you could find an honest Republican at the national level in primaries or otherwise. So if you can, bless your heart. If you can't, run for office. Believe in conservative principles. Conservative principles are not robbing the American people on behalf of Wall Street. When did that become a conservative principle? No, almost all of your representatives are corrupt. Understand that and vote them out of office, and do it immediately, because if you don't do it right now, as Anna pointed out, after the elections, they'll put her in place. She's promised to rob you, and she will rob you, and they'll applaud while doing it. So throw all those bums out.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, all the updates on the Cohen scandal, You don't want to miss it. My favorite part is watching Trump squirm.
He's so progressive, he recycles his thoughts. His car cleans the air. He prosecuted a bank executive and won. His idea of Social Security is old people being able to survive. When he builds a bridge, it bridges the income inequality gap. The only campaign contribution he'll accept is your vote. He's the most progressive man in the world.
Not all Democrats are created equal. Support bold progressives, my friends.
Thing you have in common with your daughter?
I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
You said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before. Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong. Because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine, but he was mad.
Jake Uger, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, hit up. Jake the Turk Uger.
Bring a TV station, this says. The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It's right out of like Wayne's World. This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power. We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America. We're the largest online news show in the world. We're celebrating our 1 billionth view. We're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment. And Phil and host beat CNN headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show. Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a Paul Glass shut up. If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can quote support him. He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had." The head of MSNBC talked to me. They want him off the air. Cenk took an incredible risk. And we're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I'm going to be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing an actual show. I guarantee it.
It is wrong to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country.
Look, I tell you guys, most important thing is voting in primaries. Primaries.
I hope every American will vote for the candidate and party of his choice. But vote.
We cannot continue to complain about corruption and complain about what's happening in this country and continue to vote for it.
Let's get it right this time. It's going to be a moment of redemption for what happened in 2016. Young Turks, Cenk and Anna, lots of comments for you guys. Let's go through them. On Twitter first, Dr. Chaos MD says, to make up for the GOP tax cuts, we should cut spending on welfare. Oh, interesting. Says no more corporate subsidies, no more tax-exempt status for your churches, no more interest loans for banks. You want to do that? Watch the banks howl if you say, hey, you don't get no interest loans anymore. They're like, how dare you? We get no interest loans, you get huge interest loans. That's the way this scam works.
Paul Ryan
Welfare.
Paul
Please.
Ryan argued that the federal government is spending a lot of money on able-bodied people who refuse to work, which is, by the way, a lie. But with that said, if you really think about it, he's right. We do spend a lot of money on able-bodied people who refuse to work. It's called Congress.
Yes.
And so maybe we should really reconsider cuts in their salaries.
That's a good idea. All right, Batman Swaggins writes in on YouTube Super Chat. 1.8 trillion in 10 years term. Let us put that into perspective. That is almost $500 million a day. And I took out my calculator to confirm during the break. He's right. They gave $500 million a day for 10 straight years to the rich. And then they say, oh, sorry, I had to cut your Social Security and Medicare. I ran out of money. It's disgusting. Richard Atkinson says, Cenk, if corporate Dems are actors in the same play, pretending to be better, but really on the same team as Republicans, then why do you tell us to vote for them? They are the pretend lesser evil. So, Richard, for a number of reasons. So, number one, the Republicans are almost uniformly despicable and corrupt. The Democrats are whatever percentage, 60%, 80%, etc., corrupt. But they're not completely corrupt. Bernie Sanders isn't, Elizabeth Warren isn't, and then there are shades and there's a spectrum. So is Sherrod Brown as bad as any Republican? No, hell no. Sherrod Brown is great on some issues. He frustrates me on other issues. But that's not anywhere near John Thune, who basically just put up a for sale sign on his neck. Okay, and I can go on and on. So are some of them like Feinstein and Carper just as bad? Yes. Yes, they are. And you know how much crap we get from the establishment for saying that? I mean, I remember during Politicon last year when I said that Nancy Pelosi hadn't accomplished anything. I mean, they almost jumped me. I mean, Trump got out of his seat. He's like, how could you? How could you, the beloved Nancy Pelosi?
Oh.
You know how much money she raises. Oh, get the out of here.
Oh, we have a Nancy Pelosi story, by the way, later in the rundown.
Okay.
That will enrage you.
So, A, it depends. It depends on the person. And then B, yes, on social issues, Democrats are better. When it doesn't affect money, so that doesn't affect their corruption, they don't hate gay people. They don't hate black people. That makes a giant difference. It makes a giant difference. So on the corporate side and the money side, almost no difference for about 80% of them, okay? On the social issues, giant difference. So we got to be able to tell the difference, and we got to be able to do nuance. We shouldn't be black and white like conservatives, okay? All right, I'm going to just lighten it way up now because Rafael Herrera Diaz says, why is Anna so hot and intelligent?
Thank you.
Okay. And then Kellen Whitaker says, I mean it. I have to say it. My heart aches for Anna. It's fascinating.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what that means exactly. All right, Kellen, write in again and tell us what that means.
Yeah, elaborate. I'm curious about that.
Okay. All right. And thank you for using YouTube Super Chat. And thank you to all of you who are members. You make this show possible. Where else are you getting rage about the robbery that they're doing to American taxpayers? Oh, I'm sure on cable news. They won't stop talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, tyt.com/join to become a member. All right, what's next, Anna?
Right. Yesterday, Michael Cohen accepted a plea deal, and that plea deal indicated that he would have to, of course, plead guilty to a number of things. He told the court that he had coordinated payments at the candidate's direction, meaning Trump, to stifle stories about two women. The women were not identified by name, but the facts laid out in court papers make clear that they are the former Playboy model Karen McDougal and adult film actress Stephanie Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels. Both women said they had affairs with Trump and were paid to keep silent. So that is what he confessed to. He has pleaded guilty to that. And so the discussion, the national discussion, then turned to whether or not there's any possibility Donald Trump would pardon him. And Lanny Davis, who is the attorney for Michael Cohen, answered that question during a recent interview. Let's see what he had to say.
There's one person who could make Michael Cohen's legal problems go away in an instant. It's Donald Trump. Is he hoping for a pardon from President Trump?
Not only is he not hoping for, he would not accept a pardon. He considers a pardon from somebody who has acted so corruptly as president to be something he would never accept.
Okay, that's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah. Yesterday there was some question as to what Michael Cohen was doing because he was pleading guilty without really getting a deal from the prosecutors. So everybody's like, what the hell is he doing here? So let's break that down a little further. So here they're saying, clearly we are not looking for a pardon, because that was one possibility. They're like, maybe he just wants to get rid of this whole case. Fine, I'll plead guilty, right? I don't want to sit here and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars over several years with this thing hanging over my head. I'll plead guilty. Trump will pardon me the next day, and I'm done with it. Well, that's gone. He's not doing that. Okay. Now, there's a good reason why he's not doing that. As we've told you all throughout, they could also bring state charges, and now New York is considering some state charges against him as well. The president cannot pardon someone on state charges. So he was likely going away anyway. So now, I was on C-SPAN this morning on Washington Journal, and a bunch of Republican callers calling in. They all had the same exact talking point. They got it from somewhere. It's drilled into their head, so they repeat it like robots. They're like, oh, paying hush money's not illegal. That's fine. You could pay that. Right? No, that's not the issue here. The issue is Michael Cohen gave $150,000 to Stormy Daniels during the campaign because it affected the campaign. Trump is on tape talking about it in September of 2016 during the campaign. Michael Cohen cannot give more than $2,700 to Trump's campaign. When you give $150,000 to make this problem go away for the campaign, that is an in-kind contribution. It is illegal. Not that it's hush money. It's that you're doing it during the campaign. Now they say, well, I didn't know that's illegal. That's what Trump is saying now, right? Well, he pleaded guilty in court. That's one way you know it's a crime. The other way that you know is that the judge accepted it and said, yes, in fact, you are guilty of this crime. And then he said, well, you know what? Why would a guy admit and willing to take 3 to 6 years in prison if he didn't do it?
Also, the argument that basically consists of, I didn't know that was a crime, is not accepted for any average person in any situation. If you make an illegal U-turn, you can't then tell the cop who stopped you, I'm sorry, I didn't know I could make a U-turn there. That doesn't all of a sudden, make you safe from a citation. You're the president of the United States. You should have a firm understanding. By the way, president of the United States who's surrounded by lawyers at all times. You should have an understanding of what is and isn't legal as you're running for president. He's a clown.
It's a mood issue. Ignorance is not a defense in law. And second of all, everyone who runs for office, let alone the presidency, knows you can't just take $150,000. Look, there's a million other ways to get bribed legally. You can get campaign contributions. You can get independent expenditures. They can do it through a super PAC. But you can't just give someone $150,000 during their campaign. Of course they knew that. And of course it's a crime. And Cohen is saying in open court, yes, I conspired with a certain political candidate, which is obviously Trump. So he's alleged to be part of a conspiracy to commit a federal crime. If any other president had done it, we'd be talking about impeachment immediately.
Right.
But we've lowered the bar for Trump. We're so used to his brazen law breaking nonstop in front of everyone that when he breaks a law and there's somebody in court who says, yes, I will go to prison for years upon years because I committed this crime, and my conspirator was Donald Trump. Well, we go, I know, but he's committed so many crimes, and he whines all day, he cries all day about it, so maybe we'll call it 50-50.
Well, there are new developments regarding another mess that Trump is involved in. So remember, he's facing all sorts of investigations. It's not all about Russia. It's not all about Manafort or Cohen. There's another issue involving the Trump Foundation, because there is some evidence that indicates that Trump was using his own charity to benefit himself financially. So because of the statement that Lanny Davis gave in the video that we showed you, now investigators who are looking into the Trump Foundation are going to subpoena Michael Cohen to see if there's any information he can provide. According to reports from the Associated Press, investigators in New York have issued a subpoena to Michael Cohen as part of their probe into the Trump Foundation. The subpoena was issued after Cohen's attorney said his client has information of interest to both state and federal prosecutors. Cohen could potentially be a significant source of information for state investigators looking into whether Trump or his charity broke state law or lied about their tax liability. So just to give you a little taste of what Trump used his charity's money for, he used it to settle legal issues that he was in, settlements out of court. He also used it to buy a $10,000 6-foot portrait of himself.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's a little, piece of what he's spent that money on. It's incredible.
Well, so this is exactly what I'm talking about, because we already know, it's in the public record, that he spent money from his charity to pay off legal bills, his own personal legal bills. Obviously illegal. Obviously. You cannot take money from a charity and use it for yourself. Fraud in broad daylight. Well, we just got used to it. So is somebody going to pursue him on criminal charges on robbing from his own charity to pay his own bills? Is anybody going to do that? So apparently now New York is stepping up and going, yeah, okay, we'll do it, right? They should have done that, by the way, before he ran for president. They should have been prosecuting this lifelong criminal all along. But you know what? The rich and powerful in this country get away with stuff all the time, until they bother other rich and powerful people in the country. So now, when you turn back to the Cohen case, in terms of the Stormy Daniels case, I wanted to say one more thing about it. Donald Trump went around saying, well, look, I found out about it later, he said in an interview, right? No, what do you mean later? What does that mean? You mean after the campaign was over? And so this is his flimsy excuse. But you're on tape talking about it in September. He's, again, another thing where he's just a brazen liar. He lies so often that we just take it for granted. Well, okay, the president lies 8 times a day, so what can we do? They said we should impeach Bill Clinton for one lie, he told. For one lie. This guy lies 1,000 times, literally, per year. I mean, that's way understatement.
Yeah, he contradicts himself. He lies so often that he'll contradict his own lies, and then go back to the original lie, and then contradict it again. So Fox and Friends invited him on their show today, and Trump talked about this issue with Ainsley Earhart. And let's hear what he has to say. What's the spin?
Did you know about the payments?
Later on, I knew. Later on. But you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments. But they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. And they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation. If you look at President Obama, he had a massive campaign violation, but he had a different attorney general.
Okay, so
none of that makes any sense.
Throwing Jeff Sessions under the bus again. But let me clarify what he said about Obama, because for anyone who might be curious about that. So apparently Obama's camp was very slow in reporting, their campaign donations in the 2012 election. They eventually did, but he did get hit with a fine to the tune of about $375,000. So he paid that fine, but it wasn't like he was doing something super shady. They just took too long to report the full amount that they received in campaign donations.
And by the way, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad they were caught. I'm glad they paid the fine. And so when Trump says 2 nonsensical things there, so it wasn't really a violation. Like Obama had a campaign finance violation. You just said it wasn't a violation. What does that mean? You contradicted yourself within 5 seconds. Okay, so, and in fact, what Obama did was a violation. That's why he paid that big fine. And so, was there hypocrisy? No. They caught him on a much lesser charge, and then he had to pay the cost. Or his campaign did, right? In this case, he says, oh, no, I paid for it. It wasn't the campaign. No, we know it wasn't the campaign. Michael Cohen paid the bribe. Or paid the hush money, I should say, to be clear. Okay, he paid the hush money. Michael Cohen then is giving an in-kind contribution to your campaign. That's the crime. Not that you took it out of the campaign money. And so when you pay it back later, that's just called a cover-up. That's what that's called. Okay? I didn't know about it till later. Okay. You're on tape! You're on tape on September! Why bother lying about that? Why go on TV and commit yet another? Because you know why? Because he's never, ever been held accountable. He grew up incredibly wealthy because of his dad. He went bankrupt 6 times. His dad bailed him out every single time, except the end when the Russians bailed him out. And so he never paid the consequences for his ridiculous actions. And then he ran against Hillary Clinton, and in the time of rage against the establishment, he ran a populist campaign, and he became president. And he keeps lying like he's done his entire life. He keeps breaking laws like he's done his entire life. And he's thinking there's not going to be any consequences. Well, I hope to God that we live in a country of rule of law and justice, and that one day Donald Trump is wrong, that there are consequences, even if you're born rich and powerful and have gotten away with it your whole life.
I'm going to follow the flow chart again of his thought process for this interview. 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani is worried about him getting caught in the perjury trap. He started from the beginning of that little thing with AZR, which is going to fully air tomorrow. He said, so I didn't know about it at first. I found out about it later. It didn't come from the campaign. Because I asked, the first thing I asked was, did it come from the campaign? Because, that's dicey. He didn't know it. You knew nothing about that rule, first of all. But how did you not know it first? Then you did know. Then you paid for it. But then asked if it came from the campaign. When you just paid for it. You said you paid for it, so there's no way that you would have thought it came from the campaign.
And if I recall correctly...
But you didn't know it first, but you later knew.
Yeah, it's... And also, if I can recall correctly, that tape where they're talking about the payment to Stormy Daniels, Trump was urging Michael Cohen to pay in cash, right?
Oh, right. They were talking about cash. And then Cohen was like, no, we can't do that, because that would make it even more obvious.
I mean, they're talking about the way to pay her off in this hush money.
And he keeps saying, like, oh, Michael Cohen's a liar, and he sends Giuliani out there saying he's a lifelong liar. Then why did you hire him? He worked for you, and pretty much only you, for a long, long time. So in other words, you hired him to be a liar, and now you're mad because actually for the first time in his life he's telling the truth. Okay.
Okay, so let's get to Trump's reaction to all the news that broke yesterday, and that includes the news of Paul Manafort getting convicted on 8 of the 18 charges. Following the news regarding Paul Manafort getting charged 8 out of 18 of the charges in his trial, and also news of Michael Cohen taking a plea deal where he confesses that he paid 2 women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, hush money at the direction of Donald Trump had a meltdown, which is to be expected. Now, he went on a rally, or did a rally in West Virginia, but today he decided to break everything down from his perspective, and here's what he had to say. First, he gave Paul Manafort a lot of credit. I feel very badly for Paul Manafort and his wonderful family. Justice took a 12-year-old tax case, among other things, applied tremendous pressure on him, and unlike Michael Cohen, he refused to break. Make up stories in order to get a deal. Such respect for a brave man.
Okay, so let's review what Manafort just got convicted for, okay? A jury of his peers listened to the trial on 8 huge charges. They and likely to go to prison for the rest of his life. Among the things that he was convicted of was not reporting $30 million in taxes, hid it offshore, and he did that fraud while he was working for the pro-Russian Ukrainian government, so that, unlike you, he wouldn't have to pay taxes.
That's right.
Okay? That he could just hide it offshore because he's rich enough to hide it offshore and to violate the laws of this country. And then he committed other fraud to take more money that he didn't deserve in the form of loans, etc. Trump's like, what a brave man.
What a brave man.
What a brave man for hiding his money. What a brave man for breaking the law.
The only thing that matters to Trump, for obvious reasons, is whether or not these associates or former associates are going to turn on him. Manafort so far has not turned on him. And so that's what he considers brave. Like, oh, he's willing to take the fall for me. Because Manafort could have negotiated some sort of plea deal. He didn't. And so that's what Trump is applauding him for. By the way, just to be absolutely clear, Manafort worked as a foreign agent, did not tell the U.S. government about it, made $60 million over the course of 10 years doing that, hid $30 million from the U.S. government so he wouldn't pay taxes, then went broke. He went broke after making $60 million. Just let that sink in for a second. And then, since he was so broke and desperate for cash, lied to banks to obtain loans. That's what Manafort did. He is a disgusting human being.
So I'm going to say one more thing here. He said he refused to break. You know what he sounded like? He sounded like a mob boss. He was a good man. He refused to break. Why are you so afraid of him breaking? I mean, like, I know, you MAGA guys, you're so unbelievably stupid that you think, oh, no, they would break and make up stories. Like, I bet the mob guys also would break and make up stories. No, they break and they tell the truth, okay? And he's just saying it right in front of you. He's like, oh, it's a good man. He wasn't a rat. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a rat. He didn't give us up. Okay, gee, I wonder what you did with him. Before, I wasn't sure that he did something with Manafort. I knew Manafort was crooked. Now he's convicted. We know that. Which president goes out after a guy's convicted of all these crimes and goes, what a great guy! What a wonderful criminal! That's Donald Trump. If you want to celebrate criminals along with Donald Trump, don't ever say you're for rule of law. Don't ever say you're for law and order, because you're not. You're an unbelievable hypocrite. And if you think really breaking meant that he was going to make up stories, you're also an idiot. Breaking means he's going to tell the truth about Trump. So now I do know. It turns out Manafort does have stuff on Trump. Otherwise, Trump wouldn't be worried about him breaking.
So the Manafort saga isn't over. He's facing another federal lawsuit in Washington, D.C. So just something to keep in mind for the future. But more importantly, there is talk about whether or not Manafort might take some sort of deal in the sentencing process for the crimes that he has been convicted of. Because if he does have dirt on Trump, there is some possibility that he could trade that information for a lesser sentence. I think that that's unlikely to happen. This is just my speculation, my prediction, because Trump has made it, in my opinion, clear that he is ready and willing to pardon people. And it seems as though Manafort is banking on Trump pardoning him. We'll see. That's just my prediction for the future. All right. Now, what else did he have to say? Michael Cohen pled guilty to 2 counts of campaign finance violations that are not a crime. Wrong. They are.
That's why he pled guilty. That's kind of the definition of guilty. The judge accepted it. The prosecutors charged it. He agreed. Everyone in the system agreed it was a crime. That's why he's facing 3 to 6 years in prison. You don't go to prison if you didn't commit a crime.
I know. He's talking about it as if it's someone who cheated on their diet. Like, hey, did you eat that extra piece of cake that you weren't supposed to eat? Guilty! Like, that's not what's happening here. Like,
hey, it's not a crime.
Court of law.
But, like, people say that colloquially, like, hey, it's not a crime, right? Except when it's an actual crime that you just got convicted of.
Yeah. There's more. He keeps going after Michael Cohen. It's awesome. President Obama had... Okay, we already went over this. Boring. Let's move on. The next tweet is, if anyone is looking for a good lawyer, I would strongly suggest that you don't retain the services of Michael Cohen. His longtime fix-it attorney, fix-it lawyer, all of a sudden he's like, no, don't hire that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Giuliani was talking about how, Cohen has a long history of lying and deceit. Then why did Trump hire him?
Exactly.
And why did he keep him for all those years if he has a long history of deceit? Because that's the one part Giuliani is telling the truth about. Yes, Cohen does have a long history of lying for Donald Trump. That's why Donald Trump hired him.
Yeah. I'm jumping around a little bit, but let's go back to Manafort. This was my last favorite tweet from Trump in this meltdown that he had. He said, a large number of counts, 10, could not even be decided in the Paul Manafort case. Witch hunt. No, but he was convicted of 8 of them. And it was a mistrial when it came to the other charges because not all of the jurors agreed, right? So that doesn't... Anyway, like...
No. But that's what's hilarious about this. It's like you get convicted of, rape and murder and bank robbery, but the jury deadlocked on whether you were a co-conspirator on jaywalking and a mugging. Not guilty. You know what I'm saying, right? No, he's going to prison for the rest of his life. That's pretty guilty. So one last thing. He goes to West Virginia, and in the midst of this, he mentions Hillary Clinton, and the crowd starts chanting, lock her up.
No, but we're getting to that next.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, go.
No. Let's take a break because we have excellent reporting from our very own Eric Byler. He went to that rally in West Virginia, spoke to some Trump supporters, and then we'll tell you what the rally was like, how they, dealt with this new information about Manafort and Cohen. Come right back.
Go.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy! United! We are! Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy. 96% of Americans want it. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Go get them, man. Up and at them. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Bean-pack.com.
Patience. It's a virtue. They think you can put me in a box. But you can't stifle a revolution. Cenk Uygur, you started something. An idea. That truth and honesty matter above all else. And the people love you for it. And for a while, so did I. We could have stood united, a political force of reckoning upon our foes, the hypocrites, the phonies, the unjust. But you put me in this box.
Cenk.
No. You began without me. You began without me. God as my witness. I will be the one to finish it.
There on this frontier we call the internet, a lot of bad folks out to get you. For years, corporate media barons and right-wing rustlers tried to keep the status quo around these parts. But lucky for us, there's a man who fights back. They call him Cenk Uygur, a.k.a. Digital Outlaw, a.k.a. He just rode into town, slaying trees.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. Well, lots of tweets about Anna, and we do have clarifications, so we start with fun. Dr. Doobie Hauser, which is already a fun
You're
name.
fun.
Okay, well, he thinks you're fun too. Or she, I don't know. Anna Kasparian is so inspiring, and she got me obsessed with gorgeous water jet cut tile.
Yes! Yes.
So glad to be a TYT member for the post game. Thank you. Doctor indeed. Okay, doctor's in the house. Okay, thank you. If you want to get those super fun post games, become a member, tyt.com/join. All right, now speaking of Anna Love, Kellen Whitaker clarifies on YouTube Super Chat. To be clear, I've fallen in love with Anna, and it's killing me. I have to get it off my chest. Okay, well, there, you did it. It's now off your chest. Okay. Jacob Robinson says, how do you think history will remember TYT and Cenk and other people like Bernie in 10 years, 50 years, 100? My guess is when it comes to me, not at all. Okay, but thank you for even posing such a question. Okay. JD High Roller writes in, why would you take money even from your own charity if you're a billionaire?
Yes.
He said, I'm starting to believe Wesley Snipes might be richer than Trump.
Why?
Because he did tax fraud.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And everybody was richer than Trump. That's why he had to go borrow all that money from the Russians.
Just pay your taxes, guys.
Anyway, last two ones. These are both good. Stephen Luke, this is all YouTube Super Chat. Thank you guys for helping the show. The Warren interview on Rebel headquarters yesterday made me much less anxious about 2020. She would be great on the Democratic ticket in any capacity. Great. If you haven't checked that out, look, youtube.com/RebelHQ, Facebook.com/RebelHQ, or just get our app. And all that content is on our app, or become a member, as we tell you. That's the easiest way. All right. Photog Mike says, Giuliani, quote, Donald, don't worry. Prison is not really prison. Truth isn't really truth? Don't worry. Prison isn't really prison. You see how that works out for you. And crime is not a crime. I mean, what is it? What is it, a crime now to commit a crime?
Like, I'm not optimistic enough to believe that he'll ever end up in prison. Can you imagine if he ended up in prison?
Oh my God, if they walked him out in handcuffs.
I don't know what I would do. I would be beside myself.
Let us whisper into the tree.
I would do somersaults on camera.
Right. That's not going to happen. So, and I'm not a pessimistic guy, and I think that I'm a realistic person. What I mean by that is, if it came to that, that would be a holy mess. We shouldn't even want that. Because a third of this country will lose their minds, and they'll grab their guns, and it'll be an unbelievable mess, and the people in charge know that. And my guess is that they'll offer Trump a deal, and he'll take the deal. And in that deal, he'll get to skate. He won't go to prison. He'll get to keep all the money he stole. His kids will keep all the money they stole. And so there'll be no justice in that sense, but at least he'll be out. That's my guess as to what's going to happen.
Okay. I think you're right, too. All right, let's move on. Donald Trump held a rally in West Virginia. This was on the same day that Paul Manafort was convicted of 8 charges, including tax fraud. And also, Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to paying off women that Trump had affairs with. Now, with that said, Trump decided to have this rally. He didn't mention any of these convictions or the fact that Cohen pleaded guilty, but he did mention...
He didn't bring that up.
No, didn't bring it up at all.
Fascinating.
But his supporters didn't really seem to care about any of that. In fact, they did talk about locking people up, but according to various journalists who were there, Ezra Klein, for instance, says, lock her up chants about Hillary Clinton at a Trump rally on the day Trump's campaign manager and personal lawyer get jail time is really GOP politics right now in a nutshell. So that's what happened.
They chanted lock her up. I'm going to give you another tweet. This is a really good one. Christina Wilkie said, surreal on a day when 2 of Trump's top aides were handed 16 felony convictions between them, and both will, in fact, be locked up. So that's his campaign. It's not like a random dude at the campaign. Well, I didn't know him. He was getting coffee. His campaign manager and his personal lawyer. Okay.
Yeah.
16 felony convictions. They're chanting lock her up about emails. About emails.
About emails,
About
yeah.
emails.
They were also chanting drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp? Well, I got good news for you. We just did. Because 2 of them are going to jail. And they work for Donald Trump. It is amazing how willfully blind Trump supporters are.
Now, they might be willfully blind, or they might have bought into the propaganda that the right wing spews on a daily basis. And to give you an example of that, our very own J.R. Jackson put together a mashup of the reaction of the right wing to what happened yesterday to Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen. Take a look.
The election laws are a morass of misdemeanors, felonies, crimes, non-crimes, with exception.
Michael Cohen pled to charges that are actually not crimes.
You can't impeach on the basis of minor derelictions or even crimes. You need a high crime.
This Donald
is not
Trump
a crime.
directed it.
It's not a crime. It's not a crime.
Violation of election laws are regarded as kind of jaywalking. Is that illegal? How is that a crime? If he directed somebody to do it, intending to pay it back, that's probably not a crime.
Minor campaign finance violations. Far worse crimes, by the way, committed by others. They didn't get charged.
Every administration violates the election laws. You know, every campaign has violated some technical election law
Or an attempt to try to do anything to connect Cohen's wrongdoing to potential wrongdoing with Trump.
Well, itself, it's not a crime. Every candidate violates the election laws when they run for president.
It's not a crime.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, I can't get enough of that. Okay, the guy pleaded guilty to a crime, and he's going to serve up to 3 to 6 years in prison. The judge said, "Thank you for your guilty plea of that crime." And
Can we do a split screen while Cenk explains this so I can play the role of Tucker Carlson? Is that possible?
Let's try that. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it is a crime when you plead guilty to a crime. Okay, and when you say I had a co-conspirator in that crime and his name was Donald Trump, authorities are going to want to investigate your co-conspirator in that crime. You go back and watch Tucker Carlson's face.
Why does
he do that?
Why would anyone trust someone who looks like that? Like, he's so confused.
Yeah, the whole time he's like, what? But to be fair to Tucker Carlson, it is fairly confusing when they say the crime he admitted is not a crime. I would also probably make this face.
That was unbelievable.
My favorite part of that is how Alan Dershowitz has humiliated himself on national television over and over. This guy's been kissing Donald Trump's ass to get to be one of his lawyers so he could be relevant again, and Trump still hasn't hired him. But he still goes out there every day on Fox, and he's like, "Oh no, all the things Trump did. I mean, it could be a crime. I don't know if it's a high crime." And you're supposed to be a fancy law professor. Most constitutional experts understand that high crimes and misdemeanors refers to the high in that sentence refers to people in high positions. That's how it was used at the time. And even if it wasn't, I don't care what interpretation you want to put on it. It's high crimes and misdemeanors. And campaign finance law violations are at bare minimum misdemeanors. Guys go to prison, Cohen is, for 3 to 6 years. Okay, that's not a minor misdemeanor. So that was wonderfully humiliating for these Orwellian guys to come out there and go, "Yo, what are you going to do? Believe your lying eyes? We got alternative facts for you, man. The truth isn't truth, and crimes aren't crime."
So that was humiliating for at least our perspective, was that it was humiliating. But that type of misinformation, that type of lying to protect Trump, it works with his base. And that was abundantly clear at this rally in West Virginia. Now, with that said, luckily Eric Beiler was there. He did talk to some Trump supporters. The topic wasn't specifically on Michael Cohen or Paul Manafort, but it did give you a little bit of a sense of what these Trump supporters are thinking, their mindset, and just how much they lack trust toward the people that maybe they should listen to, or at least, consider their perspectives. With that said, though, let's hear what they had to say about censorship and their favorite newscaster.
One of my favorite newscasters has just recently been banned from, YouTube and Facebook platforms.
Why do you think Alex Jones was banned?
A lot of people don't like his message. I enjoy his message. I'm not one of those people that believes everything he says. However, he puts an interesting spin on turning the frogs gay, for example. It really makes you It really makes you look at the white papers.
I don't know a single thing that he says except for the Newtown massacre not having happened. But what is the frogs being gay?
Chemicals in the water. Basically, you've got male frogs, no longer inclined to breed with females. So
it's not just like rhetoric or talk. I mean, this stuff is done in labs. There are scientific facts. There's things that people do that are covered or that they just mock at or laugh at.
So I want to be clear here, okay? Eric Vilas, part of Rebel headquarters, and part of the Young Turks, goes down there and interviews them. Emma Biglin does it from time to time. And I think that, unfortunately, Trump has a great way of brainwashing a lot of his supporters so that they believe in such things as truth isn't truth and crime isn't crime, etc., right? But as I watch that whole interview, and we'll have the link down below for you guys if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook, or just go to youtube.com/RebelHQ. I kind of like that couple. I know that's a funny thing to say, and I felt bad that they were being misled. I actually felt that they were somewhat open-minded, and so in mass, Trump fans appear to be caricatures almost, especially how they act on social media. But that's why I like actually going in and meeting them. And so in meeting them, I actually felt, I don't even think sympathy is the right word. I think that they are, in their own mind, in trying to keep an open mind, okay? But that's the problem with a guy like Alex Jones, because he got them to believe that the gay frogs were based on studies and facts.
And by the way, I don't care about the gay frog conspiracy theories, because that doesn't put anyone's life in danger.
Yeah, it's
right. It's fun. Like
it's relatively benign.
He spreads the conspiracy theory. His fans enjoy the conspiracy theory. They're entertained by it. We're entertained by it. We make fun of him, and then we move on with our lives.
I know, but you know what? I'm sorry. Let me give a caveat, right? So it's fun if it's just about gay frogs and chemicals in the water. And you should, by the way, you should be careful about things that are in the water.
There are actually chemicals in the water, just
right?
Not chemicals that are turning frogs gay.
That's right. And the real problems are in Flint, Michigan, where you actually have lead in the water, etc. Right? But if he then uses that to say, like, oh, that's why human beings are turning gay, and so it's not, and then somehow just weaves that into basically discrimination against gay Americans, then it's not fun and it's disastrous. But I honestly, I don't know what else he does with his stupid gay frog theory. Okay, but my sense of this, and you can say that I'm being too generous here, is that these are not bad guys. They watched the wrong show. They got led into believing that those are facts when they're not facts, and that's part of the problem with that guy like Jones.
Yeah, playing the role of overly generous host today is Cenk Uygur. Sometimes we switch that role. Sometimes I'll play that role.
Mm-hmm. Depends on our mood.
Yeah, it really does. So I'm just going to be quiet and move on to the next video. In the next video, they talk about how offensive it is to be referred to as a certain type of person by non-Trump supporters.
Did you get shouted at as you entered the building?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And I waved and videotaped.
Protesters actually right out here.
In public. Sorry.
Your heroes are here.
We shouted some facts, and they didn't have much else to say.
They just scream that you're racist and you're white supremacist and all this. They just scream at you when you try to talk to them. They don't want anything to do with you.
It would have been nice to have some intellectual debate, but there was none of that.
So we smile and we wave and we go.
So he went on to talk about how, it's all, a lot of the propaganda you hear from different places. Facts don't care about your feelings. Yeah, whatever you got that one from, right? But when he said it's not racist, they're just facts, I was like, oh boy, I wonder what he thinks those facts are, right? And that's what's so problematic about the propaganda spread by the right wing, which is people get confused into thinking, well, I heard it online, it must be true. For God's sake, double check. And double check what we say. Go to the original sources. Go to the data. Please, whatever you do your homework. Actually bother to look into it when someone says that frog is gay or that it's a fact that there's racial differences. And I don't know for a fact that he was referring to that. I'm afraid as you watch the whole video that he might have been. But that's why people shout at you. And maybe shouting at you is not the right way to do it. But when right-wingers, let's put it this way, that are leaders, go around saying, hey, black people are X, Y, or Z. I don't even want to get into all the terrible things they say. And they say, well, it's a fact. It's a fact, right? That's really dangerous because it's not facts. And it is perverted propaganda, which then gets people to go, well, I mean, look, I feel bad about it, but I guess it's a fact that blacks are more violent.
Look,
it's not true!
So the reason why I'm not being as generous as you is actually not because of my mood. It's because it's at this point, like if you voted for Trump in the last election and you have seen what he's done and you've changed your mind, like I commend you for being open-minded enough to consider the damage that he's done. But if at this point you're willing to attend a rally for him in West Virginia, that means you are a real supporter. And you have seen what he's done, and you are in favor of it. You support it. I mean, you have to support it if you're going to show up to a rally. It's one thing to vote for a guy. It's another thing to actually show up to a rally. Like, he separated toddlers from their mothers at the border. People who are seeking asylum.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to look at you and say, oh, no, I think you're a good person. You just bought into propaganda. Regardless of how much propaganda you've bought into, I think any decent human being would look at that zero tolerance policy and find it so unconscionable that they would not want to support a candidate who would push for something like that. That's the reason why I'm not as generous as you in looking at them as good people. But with that said, other portions of this interview did make them seem like they're open-minded. So, for instance, they were asked about this whole Robert Mueller case, and they were asked, hey, do you think it's okay for Trump to fire Mueller? And they specifically said, no, we don't think that's okay. We don't believe that the president should be above the law. And I give them credit for that.
So let's watch that clip, too.
Do you think that the president should use all powers within his reach to try to prevent himself and his associates from being investigated for wrongdoing?
No.
Nobody's above the law. I don't believe that at all.
No, not at all. And I've said it many a times. If he goes down or if he did something, he should be punished. If he did something wrong or he gets caught, then that's for him to go down. But let's not forget, Bill Clinton lied to the American people about an affair he was having while in office, and he didn't even get taken out of office.
Yeah, that's because he didn't violate campaign finance laws. It's a different thing. But, look, Eric is seeing this in the Trump rallies. That's why we're actually bothering to go down instead of just talking about people in terms of stereotypes. Sometimes they make it awfully easy to do that, right? But in Eric's experience, and I've watched all the videos, and you should watch them all, too, on Rebel Headquarters, about half the people he talks to goes, no, he shouldn't fire Mueller. We should find out what happened. If he did something wrong, that's really bad. Do they really mean it? It seems like they mean it. So Trump might be in for a rude surprise if it turns out he fires Mueller, and then maybe even half of his base that bothers to go to his rallies goes, you shouldn't have done that. That means you're guilty. So we'll see. But in our experience talking to Trump supporters, that does seem like the one issue where they're like, no, he shouldn't do that.
We'll see. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the Nancy Pelosi story that I've been promising you, and yes, we will cover the Molly Tibbetts story as well.
You know what's interesting about the Young Turks is that people do associate wrongly that the Young Turks has something to do with Turkey or Turkish people. It has nothing to do with Turkey or Turkish people. It happens, though, that there's a guy who's a Turkish guy who is involved in starting the Young Turks, and so I have a lot of trouble making that point to people.
I know.
They go, what are you talking about? Cenk Uygur? I say, yeah, that's not the point. It's the rebels. They're rebels.
I know. There's an argument to be made that we shouldn't have gone in that direction. But I remember me, Ben, and Dave sitting at Tony Roma's and talking it through, and I think the absurd point that won the day back then was, well, I already had this website, and I already kind of had a little bit of a show called The Young Turk, and then so maybe that was a brand. Looking back on it, no one knew that. Like 3.5 people knew that. Of course, picked a different name. I love that. It was cool, and it made sense. It was Young Rebels, and we hated the system, and we wanted to overthrow it. But then, but we knew that, they could get confused when it was a Turkish show. A lot of people won't know. We knew that particular downside. Other downsides we should have known, but didn't know. But what won the day was that, there's already a website. That's hilarious.
I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but picture this. From North Carolina, at yard 6-6 for your Los Angeles Clippers, Michael Jordan. Oh, what could have been. The Bulls thought about it long and hard. They were almost sure the deal could get them to a title faster than staying with Jordan, but in the end, Reinsdorf held firm. Thank God. It took 2 more years, but the Bulls got past the Pistons behind Michael Jordan bulking up. Doug Collins fired for some assistant coach named Phil Jackson. Yeah, he was promoted. The Sox stayed in the city. The Bulls won 6 in 8 years. The White Sox won the World Series. Jerry Reinsdorf, beloved and adored in the city. And the rest, my friends, is history.
This isn't Anderson Cooper. If you say some BS, I'm not simply going to let it slide and then move on to the next thing.
This is what the establishment does not understand about politics. You can change the conversation.
This is my place in that broader revolution.
We first have to fight to prove that we are mean. We then have to fight for our freedom. Then we fight for our equality. And now we are fighting for our survival because your militarized police force thinks it's okay to Alabama at any point in time. If it was having class, 2011 and 2017, second in the country, then one, second in one, so 5 out of 7 years I have the best flag, and twice I have the second best. I wonder think I can win one national championship with all that talent. Because you're stockpiled
Establishment Democrats in the country.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated
Big Joe's football coach. I'm going to remind you, he was like football one in the last 2 years. And it was pretty close to a disaster. It's a 9-7 the first year, but they missed the playoffs for Miami.
I'm going in. Get ready.
Legendary edition now with
I am Jeff Gowdy. I'm an editor with TYT. I mainly work on Facebook videos, and I also do stuff with Flick. I've been doing
Play him off Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh did turn around Stanford, and everybody thought
and host and my own show. I was probably having to sell fish cookies to go around Los Angeles to find the best chilaquiles, to find the best Mediterranean food. Where can I get the best gyros?
Now he's got one. I think it's Shea Madison. Quarterback see it on this. So let's see how he does this year when he has a real, live, authentic college football quarterback. Because I look at what Jim Harbaugh did at San Francisco as an NFL coach.
All right, back in the Young Turks, just time for a couple of quick ones here. Terrence Sedlacek says,
one of those years they made
crime isn't a crime. Hell yeah, baby, it's the purge. All right, God help us. Matty Moe says, Anna is Tucker Carlson. Pure TV gold.
Kaepernick is the guts to change horses in midstream from
Midwest
Alex
Win
Smith to Colin
says
Kaepernick.
you just gave crazy right wingers great meme material for your split screen.
I
It's
thought
not
it
a
was
crime
back
faces.
They should have won the Super Bowl. That's how good Jim Harbaugh was
And then
at
some
San
folks
Francisco.
insult the people that
And
we interviewed. I got it. Okay, bless your hearts. I get it.
People can just hold on for one more year.
Last one, Seal33 Seal on Twitter says Trump's new attorney.
Saul at Alabama.
Saul
If you want
Goodman.
to talk about best recruiter, I will give you that. The best overall
I said that on C-SPAN at the very end of my appearance tonight.
40-plus
yesterday.
point games his defense has
This morning,
given up
Jesus Christ, I got
years
about
at Alabama.
I'm just not
lying.
doesn't
He can
need a
recruit.
criminal lawyer.
I don't know.
Criminal
I think Jim Harbaugh's
Anyways, you know what I am going to tell you about
there was a lot there. Let me start with
you guys
this.
were talking about it before because you got to protect
said
the
if you gave me
computers.
that class, I might be able to win one national
protect your
Give me 7
searches
classes.
online, and that's your
How do you know I
because
could?
you can save 77% today by going with military grade encryption. It's only VPN to receive a perfect
No, I mean you haven't had one.
Easy Mac.
Okay, so
You know it.
That's the
Just
only guy.
I gotta do
the only
research in
limitation
the
to Harbaugh.
media that I
Look at
agree on purchasing.
I love Jim Harbaugh. But hey, look at those defenses
I use it. So head over to NordVPN.com/TYT. Go TYT when you're at their website, and you get a giant 77% off your internet protection. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi was asked whether or not Democrats are now considering impeaching Donald Trump. Now, this follows news where Paul Manafort was, found guilty of 8 out of the 18 charges. But more importantly, Michael Cohen did plead guilty to paying off Trump's mistresses in violation of campaign finance laws. So that is an indication that Trump broke the law. So is Pelosi considering impeachment? Well, here's her answer. Nancy Pelosi said impeaching President Trump is, quote, not a priority, despite Michael Cohen's guilty plea to campaign finance violations that implicated the president. She said impeachment has to spring from something else. Okay, what does that even mean? She also said if and when the information emerges about that, we'll see it's not a priority on the agenda going forward unless something else comes forward. So she's being super vague. What else are you looking for? I mean, maybe they're trying to, put all of their attention on the Mueller case and Russian meddling, but this is very, very different from the reaction that we would get if the tables were turned and the person implicated were a Democratic president. In fact, I have evidence of that. So during the Clinton administration, back in 1999, Lindsey Graham, who was a member of the House at the time, said this.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic. If this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role, because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
So in this case, Clinton did not commit a crime. He was not implicated in a crime. He had sex with an intern. He lied about it and then later confessed to it. Republicans are ready and willing to impeach over anything. But when it comes to Democrats, I don't know. I mean, that would require me to actually be strong on something, and we're afraid of everything. Impeachment, I don't know. Let's wait. Let's wait until he murders someone, and then maybe we'll consider it. Pathetic.
So, this is what we're talking about when we say the uneven playing field. One side is super strong. They're like, we'll convict you and throw you out of office and impeach you because we just don't like your personal conduct and we're going to cleanse you. The other side, Trump was just named basically as a co-conspirator in a felony that a person admitted to, pled guilty to, and is going to serve years in prison for, right? They're like, yeah, but could we get a bigger crime?
Unbelievable.
So, look, I want to be clear. A lot of people had strong feelings about impeachment, and people wanted to impeach on the first day because of the emoluments clause, etc. And there were good reasons for that, etc. But then, to me, it was not enough because at the end of the day, impeachment is a political process. It's not, you don't go to a court of law. So the way that it works is Judiciary Committee, it has to come out of that in the House, then it goes to the full House, and all you need is a majority in the House. But in the Senate, you need 67 people to convict to actually throw him out of office. Okay? So it is a very, very high bar. But if you now lower the bar and say you can even commit crimes, felonies, be a conspirator in that, and we're going to let you get away with it, then what are we doing? So I wasn't pushing. I mean, you can go watch all the different clips, and there are times when I'm like, why won't anybody do anything about this when he clearly breaks the law? For example, when he steals from his own charity and then pays his bills, and there's many different examples. But somebody would have to go prove that in court, and then you could talk about impeachment. But in this case, we did it. Michael Cohen actually went to court and said, yes, Donald Trump and I broke a law together, and I'm going to go to prison for 3 to 6 years because of it. And the Democrats still won't do anything. So if they said, look, we want to run the elections on policy issues, oh, bless your hearts, that's great. I know, right?
Yeah, but that's not what they want to do.
I would love that. I would love that if you ran it on policy issues, if you ran strongly on Medicare for all and higher wages for Americans and the American dream for the average American, their kids can go to college, etc.
Medicare for all.
We're not ready.
But the thing is, there's only 28 million Americans that are uninsured.
Yeah.
Let's wait until there's war.
So that's not why they're doing it. If they were doing it to run on policy, fantastic, right? And by the way, you can do both at the same time. You can say, hey, I'm running on issues. But at the same time, this guy seems to have broken a law, so we should begin those proceedings. We should have a conversation about whether that's going to happen. So why is she saying this? Even though she claims to be the leader of the resistance. Because everybody in Washington lives in a hot tub time machine. So they always, in the 1990s, oh my God, you're still talking about the 1990s. In the 1970s, Tip O'Neill said all politics was local. In the 1870s, Barney Rubble, this is my second Barney Rubble reference today. Anyway, and in the 1990s, when the Republicans did impeachment, it hurt their electoral chances. So in other words, I don't care about the law. I don't care about fighting against Donald Trump on legitimate issues. I care about my electoral chances.
No, but think about
that. And it's a wrong calculation anyway.
But think about who Nancy Pelosi is. Because you're right. She cares about re-election. That's the most important thing. In fact, now that there are calls for her to step down as, Democratic leadership, she is fighting that tooth and nail. And the reason why I bring that up is because what does she do as, a House Speaker? Minority Speaker at the moment. She just raises money. That's it. That's all she does. She's a fundraiser. That is her claim to fame. That is what she's accomplished in. That is what she's successful in, raising money. She is very good at asking people for money. But she's not good at representing the American people. She's not good at representing the people who have voted for her. She doesn't care about the people who voted for her.
So let me just give you the last part of that puzzle. So if you say, hey, look, it wants to get more Democrats elected, that's what she's supposed to do as House Minority Leader. Partly, sure, of course, right? That's good. But I've been talking to reporters over the last couple of days, and the word on the street in Washington is if the Democrats get back the House, there's no way that they could kick Nancy Pelosi out of leadership. So she would get to be Speaker of the House again and have more power. So she's driven towards, we got to win re-election so I could be back to Speaker of the House. Oh, Donald Trump broke some laws. Whatever. Resistance! Yay! Meanwhile, re-elect us. Re-elect me. I have a bold proposal, which of course Democrats in Washington will not accept, which is, how about you're honest? And you go, hey, you know what? I care deeply about these issues. We're going to fight on those issues. We're going to win on those issues. And at the same time, Donald Trump obviously broke the law, and there should be consequences. Oh, but then the Republicans will distract by running TV ads. I got news for you, Nancy. They're going to run TV ads anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to run billions of dollars in TV ads. And most of them are going to be attacking you. And when you surrender, that doesn't really help your cause. They have never figured that out in all these years. Maybe it's because they're paid not to figure it out. That surrender does not show strength and does not lead to electoral victories.
One final thing I want to mention about her raising money to get other Democrats elected. Understand that she will raise money to get specific types of Democrats elected. She was very dismissive of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in her stunning upset in New York, okay? And I'm just mentioning that because, sure, it's good to help support other Democrats, but it's not to support the kind of Democrats that we're hoping for, who actually want to fight for us and want to protect the entitlements that we've paid into, who want to protect us from, the militarization of the police force. Like, she has no interest in those types of candidates. She is dismissive of them, and she believes that the majority of Democratic voters have no interest in them, or at least she's lied to herself to believe that. She is not a leader, okay? She has the seniority, she's been around, she's raised a lot of money. But what good does that do if the candidates don't actually speak for us?
During the post-game, I'm going to tell you a story about how Washington insiders in the Democratic Party are not so upset that Joe Crowley lost Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why? He was one of their own. Oh, you're going to love/hate the reason why. So we'll do that in the post-game for the members. Thank you for supporting the show if you're a member. TYT.com/join to become a member and join the home of progressives. And we'll tell you that great story in that post-game. Okay? In the meanwhile, if you're going to claim to be the leader of the resistance, perhaps you should try resisting.
Yeah. Okay, one of the more interesting stories I came across today, I've been dying to share it with you guys. Bloomberg has been investigating the issue of healthcare in America. So they're doing this multi-part series that's been fascinating. And they have specifically focused on how Americans are rigging their own safety nets as a response to a failing healthcare system. this is so interesting, and also it really highlights how bad healthcare is in America. So to give you the quick details on what they're doing, they're following people who are uninsured in this year-long effort to tell a story of Americans struggling to afford the rising costs of healthcare and the financial and medical trade-offs they make. So one of the things that people are doing is they are rejecting private healthcare altogether. It's too expensive. Their monthly costs are way too high. Their deductibles are too high. And so they realize, this doesn't make so much sense. Why am I paying $400 a month and dealing with an incredibly high deductible when, at the end of the day, if I need this insurance company to cover something, they'll reject the claims, they won't authorize things. This is a waste of time. So physicians have opted to reject insurance as well, instead charging patients directly in return for more personalized care. So there is an example of this Christian nonprofit group. It's called Liberty Health Share. These are organizations that are sometimes faith-based plans. In this case, it is a faith-based plan. They help like-minded members share some medical costs. To join, members must pledge to adhere to Christian principles. They are required to make fixed payments each month, and the money is dispersed to cover healthcare needs for other families. So they're pooling their resources together, and then they're helping one another out, right? If someone gets sick, all right, here are the resources that we've accumulated. We're going to use those resources to help that person pay for whatever healthcare costs they have. But what's interesting is, even if it starts off with really good intentions, and even if it starts off as something that's supposed to be different for private health insurers, it ends up being very similar to private health insurers. Ends up with a premium, ends up with certain things that won't be covered under the plan. So if you are living your life in a way that this group finds objectionable, even if you're overweight, they won't help you pay for certain things. If you get injured in a DUI, for instance, they will not cover the medical costs in those cases.
So in a minute, I'm going to get into the problems with Obamacare, and it really,
it's bad.
It has some significant upsides, but we don't talk enough about its significant downsides. But we will here, and I think we try more than anyone else to point out both sides. Okay, so at first I started reading this story, and it sounded lovely. People get together, working together, and there's two separate parts. There's the doctors who are setting up their own clinics, basically, and this one doctor that they're using said, she was tired of the treadmill, and when she was working for those giant health corporations, she had to see everybody in 15-minute intervals, and it didn't matter. If she couldn't give them proper care, it didn't matter. Move them along. She couldn't look things up. She couldn't tell them the answers. Move them along. It's a treadmill. The corporation's got to make more money, right? So instead, she set up her own organization in Boise, Idaho, her own office, and she's like, look, I'm going to charge families $130. You come in and you get as much treatment as you want.
You pay $130 a month. And she works as a primary care physician. She's not able to provide all your healthcare needs, but the basics she's able to provide. And so $130 a month, you show up as many times as you want in any given month, and she will see you, and she will see you as long as she needs to give you the care that you need.
So that's wonderful, and I want to give her all the credit in the world. Her last name is Gunther, okay? So the second part is the church that provides insurance. Why do you still need insurance if you've got the doctor? Because the doctor is for your regular things like an infection, and she helped this family greatly and they didn't have to go to an emergency room and spend thousands of dollars, right? That's great, that's perfect. But she can't fix cancer, right? So, or if you got shot, or you got a heart attack, etc. So there's these big events that you need to have insurance for. That's where the church comes in. And in the beginning of the story, it sounded like, that's another lovely organization. At least they got together and people working together. That's what we're in favor of as progressives. But then you read the details of the church plan, and it's not good. It's disastrous. So first, on the merits of it, right? It's not regulated by the states. And now, conservatives might be like, deregulate. No, the problem is then you don't have any protection. So it has really high deductibles. Wait, that's like the bad health insurance. If you go over $1 million, it doesn't cover you. But cancer goes over $1 million. Then what's the point of having the insurance for the things that are the real big problems in your life in terms of insurance. Otherwise, you just go to a doctor. It doesn't have rules about minimum benefits. And then on top of that, they judge your life, and if they deem you immoral, they don't cover it.
Yeah. So some of it is what they deem immoral. Other things, other extra charges, which used to exist, which used to be sanctioned under, health insurance plans prior to the Affordable Care Act, are now being utilized by these plans, right? So the Affordable Care Act comes in and says, look, you can't charge women more just because they're women, right? Which was one of the things that health insurance companies were doing. You can't charge people more because they're overweight. But these church-based plans, because they're not being regulated, can do all of that. So to give you a specific example, one family goes in, family that's been completely disillusioned by the healthcare industry, and they're paying $450 a month to this Liberty program. But the woman in the family is overweight, and so she has to pay an $80 a month surcharge for that. So a lot of the things that the Affordable Care Act luckily protected us from, these new plans that are unregulated do not protect you from. So as you mentioned, Jake, there were good things that were accomplished through the Affordable Care Act. Unfortunately, the thing that it did not accomplish was affordability.
So I did the math in the article, and when you take all the things that she has to pay for under this Liberty Health Share, it actually costs more than Obamacare. And then she also has to pay the $130 for the private doctor. Now she's paying way more. And she's not getting enough insurance. By the way, they also can deny you for pre-existing condition. And even though it's run by a church, you know what they sometimes do? They say if you weren't honest enough, and you've seen all those horror stories, if you didn't report that you had acne, sometimes they kick you out, right? So that's not in this particular case, but in the bad old days before Obamacare, right? So, but this brings it back, and they go, if we feel you weren't honest enough in your application, we can kick you out retroactively. So if you get some sort of ailment and it seems like it's too expensive, we go back and analyze your forms, and if we quote unquote catch you, then the church goes, we're not going to pay your insurance, go die. Oh, Jesus Christ, it went from a heartwarming story to a disastrous story. Now,
it's a testament to how angry people are with private insurers. They're so angry that, and my read of this is just the way that I interpreted the piece that was written by Bloomberg. It seems like the family is aware that they're now paying more than what they would have paid under the Affordable Care Act. But it seems like they don't care because they hate dealing with the insurance companies. And doctors are increasingly becoming frustrated because, remember, they have to spend a lot of time, administrative costs, in trying to get things authorized through these insurance companies. Like, that middleman has been a complete and utter disaster for a lot of doctors. So according to the research done for this piece, there have been as many as 900 doctors as of late who have decided, no, I'm not dealing with private healthcare companies anymore. I'm going to deal with the customer, with the patient directly, and see if we can come to an agreement.
So finally, real quick, the faults of Obamacare that partly led to this. First of all, they just didn't cover enough people. So 19 million people were covered. That's great that they weren't covered before. 28 million are still uncovered. Just do Medicare for all so we all have health insurance, right? But then the bigger problem is the deductibles and the rates, okay? So this family had to pay $547 a month for the Affordable Care Act. That's Obamacare. Their rent is $875. Now they're paying even more in health insurance than they would have under Obamacare, but that's still too expensive under Obamacare. And with high deductibles, and you can get out-of-pocket costs that are $10,000, that'll wipe out almost 90% of the families in this country. You left private insurance in charge, and you assumed that they wouldn't raise rates. What a terrible assumption. You thought you had some safeguards in there. We told you at the time that will not work. At a bare minimum, you should have put the public option in there. And so now what you did was you painted a Heritage Foundation plan. It was a right-wing plan in the first place, as the progressive plan. And then you let private insurance still in charge and still able to raise rates. So now their crimes are put on progressives. No, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. It's private insurance that's charging you all that money. You know what would actually solve it? Again, Medicare for all. Then we're all covered, and we all pay reasonable rates. We pay less for health care, and we actually get health insurance without the constant stress of, do I have a pre-existing condition? Am I going to get booted off? The deductibles, the co-pays, etc., that are crushing all these families. For God's sake, do an actual progressive plan and solve healthcare once and for all. All right, we got to take a break. All right, when we come back, here comes conservative propaganda. Now it's about a crime involving an undocumented immigrant. And so we're going to correct it. The rest of the media reports it as, oh, this is the one, it just so happens there's a crime we're all talking about. We'll give you the important context. We'll be right back. You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody. Young Turks is the largest online news network. Not a big deal. We're going to rock the boat. We're going to be counter-establishment. We're going to tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate. I gotta be honest, you know what we do? We cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair election. And when I told the cops that day, when they gave the tracker away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me. Unprecedented appearance by a female on Old School. When you were growing up, what did you want to be?
I was starting to think I don't want to do one thing, and I did live up to that.
Well, mission accomplished then, because Dave was a geologist.
Yeah.
And now he's, helped found the Young Turks. Even within TYT, you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So, if you want to do different things, you nailed it. All right, last story down now is a Dave story. Whenever there was something that obvious, glaring, he would go up and ask them about it. Like, it could be like a giant church, right? And somebody's standing in front of it. Usually they go, pull up right in front of them. They're like, hey, do you know where there's a church around here? They're like, right here. It's right here.
Practical jokes. Spice up life a little.
I'm here today to announce the program known as DACA is being rescinded.
We don't run our own country. We've lost our democracy, and all we have left is rage.
We're the Democrats. I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards? We'll never fight. Primaries are everything.
Building a great wall on the southern border.
You have politicians who fearmonger about disenfranchised groups.
The first attacker came through the visa lottery.
Now they are against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
They don't want people from those countries coming here because they're being racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of us as Americans.
I ordered to launch precision strikes on targets.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would do if they got into power, and what do you know? They did it.
I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're going to handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
What does this law mean? These are all just basic BS coverings.
To every politician who has taken donations from the NRA, shame on you.
They said that this was impossible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder, and at the end, we'll get our democracy back. Primary the living hell out of these Democrats. Now let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it. Let's take it.
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm the associate producer for the Meat Show. What are we working on right now? So anything that has to do with the Meat Show, whether it's grabbing elements or helping Jake or helping the host or doing research, I could go on and on. It's really fun and really nice because it's different every day. You don't know what kind of content you're going to get. You don't know what kind of breaking news you're going to get. And you kind of have to take that and put it in order, and somehow it becomes a show.
Alright, back in the Turks. I want to tell you about one of our sponsors real quick. It's BetterHelp. So this allows you to get therapy, and God knows in Trump era you need it. At home, you can do it through the phone, you can do it through a video chat, and at betterhelp.com/TYT is a way to find out more about it. You can fill out a questionnaire, and you'll be matched with a counselor that works best for you. They're fully licensed, trained, accredited, and experienced psychologists, counselors, and therapists. Look, my wife's a therapist, so this makes a ton of sense to me. So please, if you need help, go get it, betterhelp.com/TYT. And then I want to read, of course, speaking of healthcare, one tweet from you guys for Gonzo Tokyo. Hospital visit for my wife recently. It was an ER visit. Listen to this. IV fluids, blood tests, ECG, CAT scan. They were in the hospital for 3 hours and had to take an ambulance there. So the bill, brace for impact, $75. Oh, they're in Japan. Okay.
Denmark.
In America, that was
Denmark.
Watch yesterday's post game. TYT.com/join. Anna wants to be a carpenter in Denmark. Anyway, in America, that would be minimum $7,000 after insurance, like as part of your insurance. Okay, $75. That's it. Japanese National Health Insurance. Quality treatment in a timely manner. Jesus Christ. Okay. Lobby Array on YouTube Super Chat says, well, I love the El Jefe ad. When are you guys going to get Anna and JR one? The answer is likely never.
Yeah. By the way, spent a lot of time in hair and makeup and getting all dressed up to do the photo shoot and the video for that, and then it just never got edited.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
If you buy more of those El Jefe shirts on shoptyt.com, then we'll put an editor on doing the ads that Anna and JR already shot. Okay, the person who was doing the ads took another job. We got to figure it out. Anyway, thank you for caring, though. We appreciate it. That's during the live stream that you can see that. Okay, and last one, Tammy Covello says, what that means, referring to Pelosi, what that means is that they're all guilty of breaking election finance laws. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Maybe they don't want to focus on that one.
Maybe.
Right?
I don't know.
Anyway, but mainly it's because they think it's bad politics. Okay, all right, let's go forward.
All right. There has been a national story involving a woman a college student in Iowa, who went missing in late July. Now, the story has now been exploited as propaganda by the right in this immigration debate because the person who allegedly committed the crime of murdering her is allegedly an undocumented immigrant. Now, I say allegedly because reports keep conflicting that very detail. Is he here illegally, right? His lawyer says no. There are indications that he is here illegally. But regardless, this story is involving a woman by the name of Molly Tibbetts. Her remains were found after Christian Rivera, that's the name of the alleged perpetrator, led authorities to her remains. Now, to give you some more details on this, investigators zeroed in on Rivera thanks to surveillance video and charged him with first-degree murder in the death of Tibbetts, whose disappearance on July 18th set off a massive search. So again, he led investigators to her remains, which, by the way, is pretty clear evidence that he committed this crime. And so Republicans are now latching onto this story because of his immigration status. Again, his lawyer is saying he's here legally. There are other indicators that say he's here illegally. He's a criminal, and he should deal with our justice system, and I'm glad that he got caught. Now, let me give you a sense of what people are saying. Tom Cotton says, prayers for Tibbetts' family and all who knew and loved Molly. Lots of questions. Where did this illegal alien work?
That is a good question.
That is a good question. I'll tell you in just a second. What was his work status? But one thing is sure, Molly would be alive if our government had taken immigration enforcement seriously years ago. Okay, well, we actually found out where he did work. And he worked for prominent Republican farmers in the state of Iowa.
Here's what I would say to that. Lock him up. Lock him up. So, I mean, you tell me. You keep saying that this is a scourge upon the country, and he wouldn't be here if it weren't for our lax laws. But he also wouldn't be here if somebody wasn't hiring him. So that guy hired him, and now she's dead. If this is your logic, it's not my logic, okay?
Yeah.
And according to your logic, well, then I guess the guy who hired him is also culpable. If you hadn't hired him, you never would have been here, and Molly would be alive.
So let's go to graphic 43.
I'm sure they're going to arrest that Republican fundraiser, right?
Doubt it. So let's go to graphic 43 and give you more details on where this man worked. Rivera had been employed at the farm of Craig Lang, an Iowa GOP official, for the last 4 years, and had also reportedly passed the government's E-Verify system. I'll give you an update on that in just a second, which scours ICE and Department of Homeland Security records. Now, there was an investigation into the E-Verify system, and it has now been confirmed that he actually did not go through the E-Verify system. So this Craig Lang essentially lied about that, because he was the person who said, no, he was a reputable guy. We put him through the E-Verify system, and he passed. No, I mean, look, we talk about undocumented immigration in the country as if all the onus is on the people who are here illegally. They're all criminals. You know, they get defamed left and right. But we never talk about all the Republicans throughout the country who hire them, who pay them, you know, incredibly low wages, sometimes lower than minimum wage. We never talk about that, do we? And by the way, look, this is a horrendous crime. And so I'm not making any excuses for this guy. You know, he should go through trial, he should deal with the justice system, and, you know, he should be dealt with properly. But with that said, let's not make any mistake about why this has become a national story. First of all, anytime there's a mass shooting in the country, what is the first thing Republicans do? Oh, no, prayers, and we cannot politicize this. Do not talk about gun control. Don't politicize it. We're talking about one murder in the country that could have been committed by an undocumented immigrant, and all of a sudden, this is a national story, and they're using this to stereotype all undocumented immigrants in the country. By the way, two can play at that game. So let's look at some FBI statistics on homicides in the country. These are statistics from 2015, the latest year that we have the stats on. In this data set, there were 2,574 counts of homicides where a white person was the victim of an offender who was also white. I think we need to deport white people, and we should really reconsider what citizenship means in the country. Just because you were born here doesn't mean that you're necessarily a citizen. Should we deport all white people? A lot of these people are white men. Should we deport white men? They're all criminals, right? Based on that stupid logic that you hear from Republicans time and time again.
This is how propaganda works. You just pick isolated anecdotal cases and you repeat it over and over again until people think it's a giant problem. This murder is horrible, but I could find you just as many murders, in fact, more murders committed by citizens, because undocumented immigrants commit less crime than the citizens do on average. But that's not what you see, because Trump doesn't want you to see that. The right wing doesn't want you to see that. We obviously can't deport the citizens. We have to actually care about what is the real problems in this country. So any murder is a gigantic problem, but trying to twist it so it seems like they're doing more of the crime is just flat out wrong. Young Turks.
My name is Allison Hartson. I am a national director with Wolfpack.
Hop on those 3D glasses, guys, because it's fucking crazy.
The goal of Wolfpack is to get an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that will allow us to have free and fair elections. It's not the only issue, but it's the first issue, and that's money in politics.
The goal of Wolfpack is to get a representative democracy back in this country.
The corruption issue affects every other issue. You name it. You can go down the list: education, the environment, the military, the economy.
People at the top that are making the most money are the ones that are dictating all of the rules. That is the antithesis of a democracy.
Wolfpack has the most intelligent, plausible way to get money out of politics. We have the logical plan. So what we're trying to do is to use the power that our forefathers gave us in the U.S. Constitution through Article 5.
Article 5 is a specific procedure set up in the Constitution to propose amendments to it.
You have to work state by state. You need 34 states to make that happen.
Vermont, California, Illinois, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. We passed in those states so far. One of the hardest parts of my job is that I have to follow her. Give me a break. My name is Mike Manetta. I am a national director with Wolfpack.
We have decided to move Wolfpack from defense to offense.
We travel from state to state constantly. This year, she was gone from January 2nd until, I think, May, without ever going home once. So that's dedication.
I get frustrated and want to quit every other week. No, I'm kidding. Kind of. There are definitely really tough moments, but the most amazing thing about it all is that we get through it together and we get stronger because of it, and we just keep each other going. Like Mike and I, when I'm down, he like pushes me forward, and when he's down, I push him forward, and we keep on going. We work like a team like that, and that's what we tell our state teams, and that's why they need each other as well, because it takes a lot of tenacity and a lot of perseverance and resiliency to be able to get legislation passed, period, let alone to fix corruption in the most powerful country in the world. When we passed in California, that was my first win that I got to personally enjoy. That was amazing. I think I was hooked, officially hooked at that point.
I was in Rhode Island when we passed. I was probably there every single day that week, just standing outside, holding up signs, waiting for legislators. 2 years of really, really hard work condensed into this one amazing moment of victory.
To have those moments, it literally makes everything that we do so much more rewarding. If people are truly sick and tired of sitting by and watching what's happening to this country, and if people are truly sick and tired of just talking about it and tweeting about it and liking it and sharing it on Facebook, it's time to take action and get out on the streets and get involved and learn how to get involved even if you don't know how to. You cannot just complain from the sidelines in this day and age. There is too much going on. We need to do this now. There is no time to waste. Anybody who wants to get involved, is curious, is a little scared, but would like to know how to possibly start learning how to make this happen should go to wolf-pac.com, wolf-pac.com, and sign up to volunteer. No experience necessary.
The facts are on our side. The history is on our side. The public opinion is on our side, both on the policy and the procedure. We're going to find more success, and we will get this amendment.
There's no other option to me. Hey guys, welcome back to TYT. I wanted to touch on one final portion of this Tibbet story that we didn't have time for in the last segment. So, Candace Owens is one of the members of the right who is exploiting this story, who keeps tweeting about it, and something really interesting happened. One of Tibbet's second cousins, at least she has presented herself as a second cousin, her name's Samantha Lucas, responded to Candace Owens and said the following: "We are not so small-minded that we generalize a whole population based on some bad individuals." She later said, "Take her name out of your mouth." And so I wanted to give you that perspective because it's important.
All right, we gotta go. Rebel headquarters next. Bye bye. Turks, Rebel headquarters, you get it. It's part of the TYT network. Okay, having fun. Let's go to our first guest right out of the gate. Joining me now is Anthony Flacavento. He is running for Congress in Virginia's 9th District. Anthony, have you ever won a contest for most Italian-sounding name in America?
No, but I sure should have.
You really, really should have. Anthony Flacavento. All right. So first, let's talk about the incumbent here, Morgan Griffith. He's a Republican in Virginia. How bad a guy is he?
Well, he's a Freedom Caucus member. He's a Tea Party Republican, pretty reliable vote for all things Trump and all things related to the Freedom Party's, Freedom Caucus's values. For the 9th District, he's been largely an absentee congressman. People across the political spectrum often ask the question, where is he? Why doesn't he show up? Why doesn't he address our issues and concerns? So I think it's partly who he is in Washington and partly who he isn't in Southwest Virginia.
Okay, you on the other hand, have you done any town halls at all?
Yeah, just a few, Jennings, just a few. We have done 69 since I started my race in October. I pledged to do 100. We should be able to make that by November 6th. We have our 70th town hall in Martinsville focused on criminal justice reform this Saturday. So yeah, and those town halls have been attended by well over 4,000 people, and they're wide open. It's much more than the Democratic base that comes out to them. It includes people who've not been engaged in politics for quite some time. It includes independents and even some moderate Republicans that are fed up with this guy and want a working person to represent working people, which is what I am.
So, speaking of which, let's talk about what you did for a living, because it's going to relate to your policies.
Sure.
It says here in your bio that you were a farmer and a businessman. What kind of farmer were you?
Well, I still am. Right now I'm a neglectful farmer because I spend all my time on the campaign. But we took an old tobacco farm, which is very common in Virginia and West Virginia, Kentucky. That was the dominant crop. And we transitioned it to raise produce, in my case organic produce. And we did that about 19 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And then my day job is a small business that works on economic development, what I call bottom-up economics, which is to say, quit relying on the total myth of trickle-down and start building economies that diversify, that support local independent businesses, that promote green and healthy enterprises. And so that's what I do for a living, is I help communities figure out how to do that, not only in the 9th District of Virginia, but in other parts of the country as well. And that has really led me to want to run for Congress, because I want to lift up this approach to building prosperity, which builds real prosperity instead of the faux prosperity of Wall Street. And I want to see it magnified on a much greater scale across the country.
Well, organic farming sounds pretty hippy-dippy. So does that stuff really work? Can you really transition people to sustainable living through the types of ventures that you're talking about?
Absolutely, and it's not just farming. We've worked with entrepreneurs who do all kinds of things, from energy efficiency retrofits of low-income and working people's homes, to all kinds of farming, organic, sustainable, and other kinds of farming, to downtown renewal. We have little towns in central Appalachia, coal towns that no longer have much of a job base from coal, who are reinventing themselves around the natural world with trails and with hiking and outdoor recreation, with breweries. So much of what's happening in other parts of the country is happening here as well. The fundamental difference is we still are a land-based economy, and so a lot of our time is spent trying to work with farmers, work with loggers and foresters to be able to manage their land in a way that really is good for the environment, but at the same time creates a decent livelihood for them and others.
Well, now I know you're a good businessman, because you convince people to get drunk in the breweries and walk around in the woods in Appalachia.
Usually we get drunk after our work day.
Oh, okay.
When that happens, Jake. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, in all seriousness, it sounds like you've got actual economic rejuvenation plan for that part of the country. But are people responding to it? You know, Trump just went to West Virginia yesterday, and we covered it on the show, and we sent a reporter down there. He interviewed some people, and they said, well, look, at least Trump fights for the coal industry, and that's what we need down here. So are people still resistant? Are they still in the old mindset of it's either coal or nothing?
Some, for sure. Some are, yeah. And some still hope that there'll be a renaissance of a rejuvenation of the coal industry. But I'll tell you, compared to just a few years ago, and I've spent many days, many weeks in the coal industry. I was with coal miners during the Pittston coal strike in 1989 and 1990, spending most of my days on the front lines of that strike. And I can tell you that just over the last 6-7 years, the mood in the coal counties of Southwest Virginia, and I would guess in Kentucky and West Virginia as well, is that many more people accept that the coal industry is never going to come back to anything like it was. We have metallurgical coal in Southwest Virginia, which is used in the steel industry, and a modest amount of jobs are going to be sustained for a while on metallurgical coal, but it's a fraction of what was here a generation ago. And many people now recognize that, so they're open to the idea of new manufacturing, new industry, new businesses, including quite a bit of interest actually in medical marijuana and hemp, industrial hemp, as one of many economic drivers for the region. So there's an openness in coal country that we didn't see until recently.
Yeah, you know, ironically, as I'm talking to you, Anthony, I'm thinking maybe Trump might have broken the idea that coal is going to come back, because he promises so much during his campaign, and obviously it's not coming back, and people are still losing their jobs, their wages aren't any higher, and so after Trump, they might not have much to hope for, because he filled them full of lies, and now that they see that it's lies, they might realize maybe we should transition and actually get jobs in other industries that could actually make this area flourish. So I guess there's hope in that.
There is, and I'll tell you what. Another thing it compares to, Cenk, is the tobacco industry. So as I said, we've had a small. We're not like Iowa. We're not Nebraska. Our farms are mountain farms with a little bit of flat land and rolling hills. And what people have had for years is beef cattle, a little dairy, some chickens, and tobacco. And as tobacco started to decline because people were shifting their health habits because it was being produced cheaper overseas, the powers that be fought to the bitter end on the notion that nothing can replace tobacco. So they didn't do anything to try to replace tobacco. Myself and others at the grassroots were working to create alternatives, and we had some success doing that, helping people get new markets for new products. It's been the same way with the coal industry, just holding on to the bitter end. And now, fortunately, that door has begun to open, and I think we're going to see a lot more investment. Certainly, if I get to Congress, there'll be a lot of sustained investment in building the new economy throughout rural America, but particularly in the coal country.
Man, it's so frustrating because it's such a no-brainer between you and a standard corrupt Republican congressman who works for his donors and works for his industries and doesn't give a damn about the people in that area. All right, speaking of which, you don't take corporate PAC money. Do you take any PAC money?
We are hoping to get some support from organized labor. So the United Mine Workers, the AFL-CIO, things like that. We're in the process of securing their endorsements, and with that, we hope a little bit of money. That, to me, that's, some people wouldn't see this way, but I do. I think money from organized labor PACs is very different from corporate PACs, because if you get $2,000 from a labor PAC, that's $2,000 that's been put in, a few bucks here and there from hundreds and thousands of employees. So it's still basically the people's money. So we're running this campaign without it. My opponent, the incumbent, he gets something like 70% of all of his campaign funding from corporate PACs, including big pharma, the health insurance industry, of course, coal, the coke industries, all of that. We're not taking any of that.
And I want the audience to understand that. So why can't you transition to a better economy? Well, partly because of corrupt congressmen who take so much money from big pharma that they don't want you growing hemp because that would compete with their drugs. So that's
yeah. I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
There's been a general resistance to investing in the alternatives to creating the kinds of policies that would support this bottom-up economic development that I always talk about. It's very doable. It's happening in our area. It's happening all around the country. It just is terribly under-invested in because we keep giving tax breaks to the richest people and the biggest corporations. We do it at the national level, and it's a big part of our local economic development policy as well, recruiting big boxes and others. When you invest in family farms, in local businesses, in innovative manufacturers, in millennials who are starting businesses, you get much more bang for your buck, and you get a more diverse and healthier economy.
If it was good enough for George Washington, it's good enough for Virginia's 9th District. Well, he was also a farmer in Virginia, so I guess that makes sense. He grew hemp. All right, flockforcongress.com is the website there, FLACC, then the number 4, and then Congress, flockforcongress.com. Check out the links, everybody. Anthony Floccavento, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Real pleasure. Thanks, Jay.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back. there's not a rapper from Florida named Big Sugar, I'll never know. Okay. Okay. I mean, we're giving out good ideas every day here at the TYT Network. Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you next. I'm sure the Republicans corrupt, but you're in a Democratic primary, and all the Democrats are also taking money from these folks.
Yeah, sadly, the Florida Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, which is an affiliate PAC of the FDP, which is the Florida Democratic Party, they are taking money from, and I have a little list here because it's just amazing to me. They're taking money from Big Sugar, casinos, tobacco, alcohol, dog and horse racing. The list goes on and on. And they're also taking money from PACs that are taking money from these entities. So to me, it seems absurd to have the Democrats saying that they are doing things differently when in fact they're taking the same kind of money as the Republicans.
Now, are you really saying, Dr. Magruder, that when the casinos give you donations as a politician, that they're not doing it for the well-being of the voters?
Let's think on that.
How could anyone possibly believe that? No, the casinos are giving politicians money, but they're not expecting anything in return because casinos are good guys.
Exactly, and my opponent in this article was quoted saying she is in no way beholden to any of these groups because the indirect is same as the direct. I say unequivocally, absolutely not. If you're taking money from a source that's taking money from a source, you're taking that money.
Yes. So let's talk about your policy priorities then. Since you don't take corporate PAC money and you're going to try to represent your voters, what do you think are their priorities that you're going to push forward if you win?
So my main issues are around education, the environment, common sense gun safety, restoration for felons' rights, and ending human trafficking or fighting to end human trafficking here in Florida. So I'm a former public school teacher, and I taught in Alachua County, which is where I live. And I have seen firsthand how difficult it is for teachers in the state of Florida, and it's only gotten worse. We need somebody who knows what it's like in the classrooms, who has actually taught with the students, who's worked with the parents, who's given their life career to helping people in that area. So that's one of my main issues, and I know for a fact that that's the issues of the people because we've gone around talking to so many people in the 3 counties that this district covers. I've been out on the ground pretty much every single day for the past year and a couple months talking to people. I also know that the environment, obviously, here in Florida is something we really need to pay a lot of attention to, and that's why it makes a lot of sense not to take money from Big Sugar, but we all know that. We need to end corporate pollution. Fracking hasn't been regulated or banned. We need to do that. We need people who are willing to stand up and fight for these issues and not back down because they're beholden to special interest money or because they don't have a strong stance on those issues.
So, Alicia, when progressives go on national television and they say the type of things that you're saying, free education from preschool to vocational school all the way to college, they're met with a wall of skepticism, and they say things like, well, is that practical? So how would you answer them? And more, just as importantly, I should say, when you talk to the voters, do you meet with the same skepticism, or are they far more open to it?
You know, I'm thinking of 2 things right now. First, I just had a Get Out the Vote event at a local bar, and they had a band playing, and the band is, you know, a cool local band, and we had a ton of people there. They were all, you know, maybe, I'd say 45 and younger, right? When I spoke to encourage people to get out and vote, I asked the crowd, how many of you have student loans? And almost every single person raised their hand. So to me, that's impractical. Burdening everybody in our state and country with student loan debt, that is impractical. So when we talk about, oh, we can't do these things, we can't look forward to the future for people like my 4-year-old son or, you know, people coming up through our schools, I think that is just, it's an excuse. And it's an excuse to not prioritize what funds we do have at our ability to help people better themselves in our district, because there are people in this district, and I know that, I don't know if the viewers are familiar, but we are in North Central Florida. We have 3 different counties, and this district has some of the highest rates of people struggling, even compared to the state of Florida and the nation. So when we start talking about how we can't do these things for people, that to me means that we're not investing in a government that is actually helping the citizens. And that's why I came into this race, and that's what I've been saying from day one.
You know, every day I become more and more convinced that a great policy plank would be to say we're going to reverse the $1.9 trillion tax cut that the Republicans gave to the wealthy and erase all the student debt in the country.
Amen, brother.
and because college for all is actually really inexpensive, relatively speaking. It's only $75 billion. That's 5% of the cost of the Iraq War, for example. Student loan debt, on the other hand, is expensive, but it's actually cheaper than the tax cut that they just gave the rich. So that would be amazing if we could do that. We would liberate the whole country, because you're not alone. What you saw in those campaign rallies is what every candidate that comes on here talks about. The albatross around our necks is two things in this country: healthcare costs, it's killing us, and student loan debt. So, and the student loan debt is almost never discussed on television and never discussed by establishment Democrats or Republicans.
And you know why it's discussed by me? Because I have over $100,000 in student loan debt just to get through. I have a doctorate, and that's what I talk about when I talk about to the people, because I can relate, and I'm a different kind of candidate because I'm not ashamed of that. It's just the reality for people in my age range. So
yeah, absolutely, it's all of our realities now, and it's a way of creating indentured servants for corporations across the country. Unfortunately, for corporations, it's a win-win, but for us, it's a lose-lose. My God, we have got to get progressive candidates to win all across the country. I'm going to give everybody's Alicia's website right now. I have more questions for you, though, so stay right there. VoteAlicia.com. That's OLYSHA. VoteAlicia.com. And obviously, please volunteer and donate to people who don't take corporate PAC money, because volunteering and small dollar donations is the key to victory. So one more thing on your priorities list that stood out to me, because I don't see it in a lot of lists. It's human trafficking. Is that a particular problem in that area? Why is it on your list of priorities?
It is a particular problem in Florida, and especially in the one part of our district. There's a lot of tourism here. There's a lot of hotel industry here. And there's a lot of people coming in and out of the country through Florida. So it is a very particular problem to this state. And I guess my dad's a Southern Baptist preacher, so I grew up in a home that was devoted to helping people who are the most vulnerable among us. And so to me, I want to make sure that I include, hey, there's my mom. She's a teacher in our public schools, actually. So for me, it's really important to focus on the people who are the most vulnerable in our society. And I can't think of people who are the most vulnerable if you don't think of people who are involved in human trafficking, who are the victims of human trafficking.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. By the way, you look a lot like your mom. Okay, and I see that you got a little hint there that says "we call BS." Is that a reference to gun control in Florida?
Yes, that's actually the Parkland students came on a rally a few weeks ago, and they were giving out these pins. So I just wanted to pay them some tribute, because it's impressive what they're doing, and I've been a member of Moms Demand Action, which is a national network of not just moms, but people who are working for gun safety in our country. And so I was really excited that they came around and that youth movement is happening, and I'm very inspired by them. I also have the Vote Pro-Choice pen because I am one of their candidates as well.
All right, excellent. All right, Dr. Alicia Magruder, it is Florida's 8th District State Senate seat. In this case, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
It was so nice to be here, and I just want to say one more thing. Thank you to all my supporters who are watching. I know you have a bunch of viewers tonight, so hi.
Hey guys, how you doing? All right. All right, have a great night. Okay, we're out of time, guys. Got a great post game for you. Interesting secret story about Joe Crowley. TYT.com/join. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.